Today on Histopedia, we're diving into a monumental event that forever altered the course of American history, a single event that would shape the future of the nation and fuel its explosive growth. On May 10th, 1869, in the deserts of Utah, a small golden spike was driven into the ground, marking the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. But this wasn't just any spike, it was the culmination of years of ambition, hardship, and vision. So, how did this incredible feat of engineering come about? What drove the nation to build a railroad that would span from the East Coast to the West? And what were the costs of this massive project, physically, economically, and socially? This is the story of the Gold Spike, the Transcontinental Railroad, and how it helped reshape America forever. In the mid 1800s, America was in the middle of a rapid transformation. The Industrial Revolution was taking off, and people were dreaming of a new, connected country. The East Coast was growing fast, with bustling cities and factories, while the West was still largely untamed, with vast stretches of wilderness and little infrastructure. By 1860, the population of the United States had reached 31 million, but most people lived along the East Coast. The dream of connecting these two worlds was irresistible. This dream became known as the Transcontinental Railroad, a railroad line that would stretch across the entire country, linking the Atlantic and Pacific coasts. It promised to make travel faster, trade more efficient, and the nation more united. But there was one major obstacle: the land itself. The project was massive, a railroad line of over 1,900 miles, cutting through treacherous terrain like the Rocky Mountains and vast deserts. The challenges were immense. How would you build a railroad across such an unforgiving landscape? How would you find the workers? Thousands of Chinese laborers were brought in to lay the tracks across the West, often facing harsh conditions, discrimination, and meager pay. By the time the project was completed, more than 12,000 Chinese workers had been employed on the Central Pacific Railroad, making up nearly 90% of the labor force. Meanwhile, Irish workers and others worked tirelessly in the East. These workers built the railroad through sheer willpower, moving mountains and cutting through deserts, making the impossible possible. To meet the deadline, workers on both ends of the railroad worked day and night, sometimes even through extreme weather like heat waves in the desert or snowstorms in the mountains. The final stretch was no easy feat, and many workers lost their lives due to accidents, disease, and poor working conditions. The race to complete the railroad was also a race for power and profits. Two companies, the Central Pacific Railroad and the Union Pacific Railroad, were in competition to lay the tracks from opposite ends of the country, with the goal of meeting in the middle. This competition pushed both companies to use every method, legal and illegal, to meet their goal, including bribing politicians, cutting corners, and overworking their labor forces. But despite the controversies, the race continued. At Promontory Summit, where the two railroads met, the last spike wasn't even made of gold. It was made of gold-plated iron. The golden spike, which has become an iconic symbol of the completion of the railroad, was actually more symbolic than practical. Finally, in May of 1869, the two railroads met at Promontory Summit, Utah. The golden spike was driven into the last tie, signaling the completion of the railroad and forever changing the landscape of America. The nation was now connected by rail, and the world watched in awe. America was no longer two coasts separated by a vast wilderness. It was a united nation with endless potential. With the railroad complete, the possibilities were endless. Trade became faster, cheaper, and more efficient. By 1870, it only took 7 days to travel from New York to San Francisco, a journey that once took over 6 months by wagon train. The completion of the railroad was also crucial to the growth of new cities and industries. For example, Chicago became an industrial powerhouse, largely due to its strategic position along the railroad lines. Settlers flocked to the west, eager to stake their claims on new lands. By 1870, the population of the United States had grown to 38 million, with a significant portion settling in areas now accessible by the railroad. However, this rapid expansion came at a great cost. For Native American tribes, the railroad brought displacement, destruction of their way of life, and conflict. As the railroad pushed westward, it intruded on native lands, forcing many tribes into reservations. This also meant the decimation of bison herds, which were an essential part of Native American culture and survival. By the 1880s, the bison population, which once numbered in the millions, had been reduced to fewer than 1,000. The Transcontinental Railroad also marked a turning point in America's global standing. It was a bold move that symbolized America's industrial prowess and its drive to expand its influence. No longer just a growing nation in the New World, America was now connected coast to coast, positioning it as an emerging economic and geopolitical force. The completion of the railroad led to rapid urbanization. In just 30 years, the population of San Francisco grew from just 20,000 to over 200,000. Cities like Denver and Salt Lake City also expanded quickly as the railroad opened up trade and settlement opportunities. By 1900, the U.S. population had surged to 76 million, nearly doubling in 3 decades, partly because of the growth fueled by the Transcontinental Railroad. The legacy of the gold spike is a complex one. It helped turn America into a global power, but came at a cost. It pushed forward westward expansion, but it also left a trail of destruction. Today, the Transcontinental Railroad stands as a monument to American ambition, as well as the costs of progress. In the end, the gold spike was more than just a piece of metal driven into the ground. It was a symbol of America's daring spirit. It showed the world that no challenge was too great for the United States to overcome. The completion of the railroad was a turning point that set the stage for America's rise to global power, reshaping the nation's economy, culture, and destiny. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time here on Histopedia for more history videos.